Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Chris Timmins from Pegasus Resources. Guys, Chris is a close friend of mine, and we have been investing together for years. Back in 2023, Chris looked at a position he had, and I had as well, where we had both put lots of money into a company that was originally called Pistol Bay that had been renamed Pegasus Resources. And he said, hey, I'm not happy with the direction of the company. And he approached the board and asked for them to make him the CEO of the company. So in this interview, we discuss our frustrations with the Canadian junior markets that, from my view, are filled with people who are just trying to fleece retail shareholders. We also discuss what's happening with the uranium sector and why Chris is bullish on uranium. And we get into Pegasus Resources and the direction that Chris is trying to take the company in. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's good to be here, Steve.
So it's the first time we've chatted. We've been friends for a long time. You're CEO of a company named Pegasus, a company that I started investing in a long time ago. To put it perfectly bluntly, I've lost a lot of money in. And now when I say I've lost, I'm mostly holding on to that position. So loss might not be a fair characterization. Unrealized loss might be a better characterization. Now I know you were sort of in a similar position. You were involved with the company and then you weren't really happy with the direction of management, and you managed to just almost take an activist approach where you stepped on and you started to steer the ship. So what can you tell us about uranium? Why are you excited about getting involved and basically attaching your life to this little 18-cent penny stock and spending all your professional career trying to turn this company around?
Well, Steve, uranium's just the right place to be, in my opinion, right now. Long story short is that supply demand is really what's coming down to. The demand just keeps going higher and higher, and supply is lagging behind it's lagging behind by a lot, actually. So far, we've had Cameco come out, Kazatomprom come out, and both missed their production targets. If we keep seeing stuff like this happening, it's going to be very exciting few years here in the uranium sector. More plants are coming online all the time. Old ones are getting refurbished and being kept online. And we've got small modular reactors entering the market here. So I think uranium's really the place to be. And we need to find more uranium. And that's what Pegasus is here doing. We're going to go out and try to find uranium deposits.
So one of the things we talk about quite a bit with various CEOs of uranium companies is this change in sentiment, right? Like nuclear was basically a bad word to say 10 years ago. And then we've got a few people who I know they're kind of controversial figures like Elon Musk and Bill Gates coming out and being big backers of nuclear power, saying, it might not be the greatest solution, but it's the best one we got. Do you notice a huge change in sentiment? Like, I know that there's this little social media bubble of uranium investors who are huge cheerleaders. And I love the community, by the way. I find it to be a very positive community. But when you just kind of look outside of that community and you sort of hear the stuff that the world's saying about uranium and specifically nuclear power generation, do you notice a huge change in sentiment?
I do, actually. Like, I'm in my 50s and we grew up anyone in my age group, we grew up nuclear bad. That was the message we were delivered all through the 80s and even into the 90s and large part of the 2000s even. And that message was just hammered into us forever. But, everyone's starting to wake up to the realization that nuclear wasn't as bad as they thought. We've had some incidents. They weren't pretty, but they weren't the end of the world. Even Fukushima was a big disaster, but at the end of the day, it ended up not being nearly as catastrophic as everyone's imagination thought it would turn out to be. And I think some of these, obviously horrible incidents to have happen anytime lives are lost. But at the end of the day, nuclear energy is just, the safety record is actually really good. If you compare it to anything like oil and gas, maybe solar is safer just because you're not up, doing anything, but who knows, people fall off roofs too. And that's what you're doing when you're installing solar, you're up on roofs. So I think at the end of the day, the safety profile of nuclear energy is starting to come into the public profile, and people are starting to be aware that it's not nearly as dangerous as we were led to believe. Obviously, it's got to be treated properly and regulated properly to keep the bad actors, and people want to take shortcuts. You can't have that in nuclear energy. So tight regulations, good training of the individuals involved, and I think nuclear energy is probably the place to be. Let's put it this way. Energy is in decline. We need more energy now. Like, we can't wait. Like, we can try to build wind and we can try and build solar, but they're intermittent. We need base load energy right now. So that's nuclear energy, in my opinion. We can build some natural gas plants, which will be great too, but now they're starting to realize LNG is very pollutant. Methane leaks out of every little place it can. And that's just the way it is. Methane's a very light gas, and it finds all the weak points and migrates out. So now they're realizing even LNG is putting all this methane into the atmosphere, which is actually a very warming gas at the end of the day. Short life cycle in the atmosphere, but it's very warming. So I think as this time goes on and we start to discover, all the weak points in our energy supply, uranium or nuclear energy is just going to become the main focus. And I think that's where we need to go as a world.
So if I'm a potential investor or I'm just doing due diligence, kicking tires on the company, we see that the price of uranium over the last 3 years is up 244%, yet the price of Pegasus is down nearly 75%. What are we thinking about when we think about Pegasus? Is this just primarily because the company was doing other stuff, they had to do a restructuring? Is it just part of the vicious cycle of being stuck in the juniors? If you are a potential investor and you're trying to look at this world of junior mining, what is it that I'm looking at to say, hey, if I put money into this, that they're not just going to roll me back like what previously happened, and they're actually going to be able to grab onto these tailwinds and give me a good return on my investment?
Well, Steve, I've only been involved as the CEO of this company since February of 2023. So since that time, back to what you said at the beginning of the interview here, is I came into Pegasus because I was a shareholder that got tired of watching a company with really solid assets waste them. The previous management didn't do a thing with these properties. They did a very small work program up at our Pine Channel property, which we're thankful that they got done. But other than that, they didn't do anything. And of course, the share price suffered from that. And that's part of the reason I got so actively involved in this company. I came on first just trying to be a president and help out from the inside and try to move things along. But I faced resistance at every turn. So like you said, I got activist. I came in, through some conversations with the board and stuff. We asked the CEO to step down, and he did. He stepped down, and he has nothing to do with the company now. So that's the first step of kind of get Pegasus moving in the right direction, was getting this past CEO out and starting to work these properties. And that's what we did. I came in here through the summer. We got comfortable with what we had for land packages. We did some investor outreach. We talked to long-term investors. We met new investors, and we did a small raise in August, and we put that money into the ground. With that raise we did in August, we staked a bunch of land down in Utah, which is where we're working right now. We got a ground program done on our BC properties, and we got a small bit of work done up here in the Pine Channel. So, I mean, realistically, this company is basically just getting started. It's really an early stage, and it's technically a new company because we've got a whole new management team with the two new additions we've had in the last month. We've got a whole new look on how to deal with everything. And we're actually out here working our properties, which really, at the end of the day, as an investor, that's what we want. We want to invest in a company. We want to see that the money we're giving this company is actually going towards something other than G&A and lining the pockets of CEOs. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to treat this company as if I'm an actual investor in it, and I'm running it as an actual investor. I take the responsibility, and I want to control the share structure. We want to work the properties and just want to do what a real company should do.
I don't want to veer too far off from talking about uranium, but that is just such a problem with the junior markets in Canada, is that there are a lot of people who they know how to do things, right? Like they know how to run a penny stock and they know how to get things listed and they know how to use proxies to hide who owns what stock. And what they end up doing invariably, and I feel like this happens to people as they get older in the markets and they see cycle after cycle go boom and bust. They just say, hey, the stock market is an ATM. I heard one person who is an industry veteran once say to me, Steve, we're not in the business of mining the ground. We're in the business of mining the public. And this was a guy who's been involved with lots of publicly traded companies. And it just really like made my stomach turn. And I look at what's happened right now in the Canadian junior markets where it feels like there's hardly any capital flowing in. The level of investors that are out there that are watching these stories it's not a huge number. Now, uranium's different. Uranium does have this belly that is quite strong where there are lots of investors, but I feel like we need more of what you're trying to do in the junior markets where it seems like it's not that challenging of a thing for the regulators to fix if they really want to. It's the same names who are involved in all these companies that lose like 95% of their value over 2 years. And then suddenly they're CEO of a new company. Like I'm not going to say the names, but you see the names on many of these companies and the regulators don't really want to do anything. And the consequences are that when you're trying to build something now, the pool of investors you have to go to just keeps getting smaller and smaller because people are saying, why do I want to play? It's just pain. All I ever do is lose money.
Yeah, no. And honestly, Steve, it's the bad actors keep getting rewarded. So why will they change? That's really what it comes down to. The bad actors keep getting rewarded, so there's no incentive for them to change. And until investors start doing their diligence, start really looking in to who's running these companies. Like you said, go look at their track record. These guys are publicly listed names. You can go out there, you can pull up their name, you can see all the companies they've worked for, you can look at the charts, you can go back and look at their news flow, and you can start to get an idea of what they are. And hey, don't get me wrong, there's lots of guys out there in the retail world that go, oh, that guy over there, he's a real pump and dumper, and they reward him for it because they want to play the pump and dumps and they're making money doing it. And for some in the trading side of things, that works. But a lot of us are just trying to invest in a company and hopefully watch the value grow over time. And if you mistake a pump and dump company and treat it as a long-term investment, it's going to hurt you at the end of the day. If you treat it as what it is, a pump and dump, you'll probably make some money, maybe. Hard to say. It's still a huge risk because you never know when the rug pull's coming in. You could just wake up one morning and what you thought was a great investment's gone.
If you're investing in a pump and dump, from just my experience, having been tricked into these many of times, you represent liquidity for the people who have shares that they paid nothing for to sell into. And it's really just like,
it comes down to.
It seems like it's not rocket science for the regulators to go in and figure out what's happening, but there just doesn't seem to be any of this interest. And I know this is somebody who's invested money into a lot of companies. And then you find out afterwards, like, oh, they didn't show us the full cap table when we invested, but you know what? We can go get a lawyer and spend 20 grand and waste our time and probably never get paid and get tied up in the court system for 5 years, or we can just lick our wounds and walk away. And even for us who we wrote a whole bunch of checks into private deals, I'm just really sort of frustrated with how things are working in Canada. Obviously the markets are bad, but it does feel like there's some simple fixes to a lot of the issues that we have. And what you just spoke about and having guys like you who step up to the plate and do everything you can to try to build out this company, and hopefully you can be successful. What you do is you demonstrate to the markets that there are good actors out there and there are people who can build businesses and get shareholders a great return. Let's talk about Pegasus. So you guys just added an advisory board member, Derek Strickland, and you guys added a geologist to your board, Mike Magrum. What can you tell us about these additions? What's the overall strategy here?
Sure. So basically, we have two great additions to our board. Part of trying to do real things is you need the knowledge base to do it. And bringing on Mike Magrum and Derek Strickland was part of that strategy. With these two gentlemen, we now have one gentleman. Mike's got 50 years experience in the mining industry. Derek's got 35 years. Both of these gentlemen have been part of the PDAC as directors in the past. So they have a really strong reputation in the mining industry and they're well known and respected. Mike was part of the Northwest Territories Chambers of Mining, very great position for him, and just another example of his knowledge and his connections in the industry. And Derek Strickland was part of the AME. So both these gentlemen, really, with their knowledge base and their ability to, help guide us in the right way is really what we brought them on for. And the fact that we could get such high quality board member and advisor come on is really shows that we are trying to do something real here. And we're just going to keep trying to do the real thing, work these properties, try to grow, find uranium at the end of the day. Find uranium is what we want to do. And, having the knowledge to do it is really what these two gentlemen bring.
So last month, you guys released your 2024 outlook, which your main focus is on getting your energy sands project to drill ready status by the end of Q2. How's that going? What color can you give our audience on that program?
Sure. So we started a ground program at the Energy Sands property in Utah here in January. We did 13 days, I believe, on the property, which we managed to actually pretty much cover the whole thing. We had some really great samples come back. They're at the lab right now. So these are obviously just early indicators taken with a scintillometer. And we had one come back at 7,800 ppm. And we had a couple of ones that were over range. So we're not sure where they are at, but they're all over 10,000 ppm, which is very encouraging. I mean, that's over 1% uranium when you convert it over. So we expect when these assays come back here in the next couple of weeks, I'm assuming by the middle of March, we should have these in at the latest based on when the lab received them and their timeline of about 4 to 6 weeks. So we're waiting on those to come back, obviously, to make some final decisions. But what we saw with the ground program and just out there in the field is we're very excited. We think we've got something here. We think that there's a resource sitting on this property. So we're going to get the labs come back. We're going to put together a program, apply for the permits, and they should take anywhere from 30 to 45 days. So we're on track to get our drill permits and everything ready for Q2.
Something I keep hearing about from some of the guys I talk to, as you can imagine, I'm talking to people from all sorts of circles, from retail investors to institutional investors. And I keep hearing that there's a lot of institutional money sitting on the sidelines, and that's like legitimate Schedule 1 bank portfolio manager money that are now kicking tires and doing due diligence on the sector, thinking about starting to throw some real capital around within the uranium space. Are you having any of these conversations, or are you hearing of these conversations from people in your circle?
We've had a lot of conversations with some of the bigger places and stuff, and some family offices and stuff like that. For us, we're still very early stage for a lot of these companies. So they are looking at us and they are keeping a watch on what we're doing. We're obviously not ready for some of these bigger places to really step in yet, market cap being part of it, and the fact that we actually haven't drilled anything yet. So we're taking the steps. And as we progress the story here and start working the properties, we think that we'll see more of those people come back to the table and continue those conversations. So that's what we're doing. They want to see some milestones hit, and we're going to hit those milestones. And I think at some point in the future, we'll see that money come into Pegasus Resources.
So for investors watching, what should they be looking out for in 2024?
What we have is, like I said, we're waiting for the assays to come back, which we expect to see by middle of March at the latest, assuming there's no problems at the lab. And then, of course, we're going to apply for our permits at Energy Sands in Utah. And then we're going to try and drill this property here this summer. So that's what the near term. And we're also going to do a work program up at our Pine Channel property in the Athabasca Basin. That'll be probably later in the summer. We're still deciding what we want to do up there, but it'll be some kind of a ground survey is what we're thinking. And again, we'll use that data just to tighten up our drill targets on the property with goals of having that one drilled in the winter of 2025. So sometime in next year, around February to March, we plan to go back to Pine Channel and conduct a drill program up there.
Chris, thanks for coming on. I appreciate all the work that you're doing as an investor in the company. And also, please keep coming back on here in the future as the story continues to unfold.
Yeah, it was great to finally sit down and have an interview with you, Steve. Longtime friends, and finally you interviewed me.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good one.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.